Well, welcome everybody to season 1, episode 22 of Bridging Generations with Howard Snooks. And that is I. And today my guest is Jesse Miller. And I'm going to hand the microphone over to Jesse, not literally, but figuratively speaking. But I always start with a dad joke, so I wanted to start with a dad
I
joke.
love dad jokes. Let's go for it. This is gonna be good.
Okay. So, and it's pertinent. Why did King Kong go to the airport?
Oh, airport, so I don't know why.
He had to catch a plane.
Oh God. I like it.
Okay. So, it's really funny. There's a lot of dad jokes about airplanes and stuff, but it's a fraught situation. And the reason I'm bringing this up about airplanes is I'm going to let Jesse tell you why we're talking about airplanes.
I'm assuming it's because my wife told you that I'm an architect and I work on airports.
Yes, you kind of design airports.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, my daughter's father-in-law was an architectural renderer, and one of his big projects was Newark International Airport.
Oh wow,
It must be, what, 25, 30 years ago that he did it. He's passed away since, but I thought, well, that's that interesting.
that's awesome. I'm
Yeah.
actually flying there tomorrow, as it turns
Oh, is
out.
that right?
So,
Everybody talks about it now. It's like, oh my God, Newark. No, no, no.
only connected a couple times, and it's always whenever we go international. So,
Yeah.
in keeping with that,
Yeah. Well, I want to sort of let you sort of do a little brief, your presentation about yourself as far as you want to go. Just tell us all who you are.
sure, I'm Jesse Miller. As mentioned, I'm an architect that designs airports, but before all that, I'm a dad, and we were just talking before. My daughter Madeline, she's 3.5, and she's awesome. So, love being a girl dad. It's fantastic. Uh, Born and raised in Orlando, Florida. Um,
Orlando.
Spent a large portion of my life there, about 15 years, and then right around 16, my family got mountain fever, and we moved to North Carolina. Into the
Everybody's moving to North Carolina now.
As it
Yeah.
turned, everybody
Yeah.
was back then
Yeah.
too, right? So I guess we started a trend. We were vacationing there a whole bunch, and then my family just decided, this is kind of the place for us. We don't want city life as much anymore.
Mm.
Orlando, obviously, growing. I mean, everybody knows it because of the theme parks and everything. But there was huge booms happening all over,
Mm.
and so my parents were really worried about making sure that both my brother and I had really good upbringing, good outdoors exposure. Get out of Florida, so to speak, right? So they took us up to a really small town called Cashiers, North Carolina.
Say it again.
Cashiers,
Lazarus.
Cashiers. So yeah, it's
Ashers.
spelled like cashiers. So
Oh, oh,
if
oh, oh,
anybody says
okay.
cashiers,
Okay.
it's yeah, that'd be
I'll
incorrect.
turn
So
the hearing aid up a little bit for you.
but and then eventually moved down the mountain just a little ways into a town called Brevard, North Carolina. A lot of people will know that because that's one of the main entries for the Cradle of the Forest and for
Oh,
the Blue Ridge National or Pisgah
right.
National Forest. Yeah.
That's what I think of. Yeah.
Yeah, and so also where Lance Armstrong trained for several years for
Mm.
Tour de France stuff. So
Hmm. Huh. Well, so I forget when Disney World actually was built. Were you born after Disney World or before Disney World?
I was born after.
After.
Uh,
See, the decades go by really fast.
well, to be honest, I don't know exactly when it was done. I know that Disneyland prior in California, and then Walt Disney found this property in Buena Vista, now Lake Buena Vista.
Right. Right.
So just outside of, but yeah.
Right. Well, when I was a kid, I think that Disneyland started in 55, and I was born in 49. And by 57, my parents decided I lived in Durango, Colorado. They
Mhm.
decided we should go to Disneyland. So in the first 2 years, I got to go. 2
Nice.
years after. And I've been to Disney World too a couple of times with my kids. Well, isn't the town of Kissimmee? It's
Kissimmee.
just right. And that's sort of cowboy country there, isn't it?
It's amazing how quickly Orlando just dumps off and essentially becomes anything from I guess even that's being taken over, but it used to be a lot of dairy farms around the area as
Yeah.
well. So a really huge dairy uh, kind of company there, TG Lee,
Uh-huh.
was based right there. So yeah, but it still it kind of opens up
It,
about the moment you cross out of Orlando, you go into Kissimmee. It's
yeah.
very wide open.
Yeah. I think there's a really well-known rodeo or something in Kissimmee, as I recall. My dredging up my memory. But anyway, it just was the juxtaposition I think is interesting of
Sure,
Kissimmee and Orlando. So, and you are a relatively new resident of Colorado, I believe.
I am. It was 2 years as of July 4th.
Oh, just
Hmm.
all right. Yeah, all right. And did you move from where did you move from?
So my wife was in residency in Augusta, Georgia, and
Oh, that's right. That's right.
we relocated here once she was invited to join a practice here in Boulder.
Yeah. His wife is a periodontist, and I interviewed her a few weeks ago too. So we started talking about who else might be good guests, and she said she nominated her husband because he has such an interesting job and he's such a great girl dad, and she just thinks he's a great guy overall.
Oh,
So
well,
those were her three recommendations.
nice. I appreciate that. That's good. Thanks, Liz, if you're listening.
Okay, so why don't we tell me just a little bit about your education and how you got to where you are now? Why did you do that?
Sure. So I graduated high school from Brevard, North Carolina. After that, so I sort of had a mentor throughout high school. His name was Earl. Very sweet guy. He was also from Orlando, and so it was kind of interesting that his family and mine, his family actually lived right down the road where our family's church was.
Oh,
So we had sort of seen them in passing or something like that, but then kind of actually met them once we moved up to Cashiers, North Carolina. And um, he designed houses, but he was a Seabee with the Navy, right? So construction battalion Seabee.
oh,
Um, and he really good draftsman and turned that into a career designing homes, essentially very high class homes up in the mountains in North Carolina. And he let me come in and draw with him essentially during high school, which
well, how like that drew your interest? You knew that he did that, and you thought that's really interesting. Is that?
yeah. So in terms of how it started, you go all the way back. Goodness, I want to say it's probably sixth grade. There was so this where it gets both embarrassing, but then turns into a success story. I was placed into remedial math in middle school.
Okay.
It maybe that had more to do with the teachers because after I got done with that, turns out I was actually pretty good at math. All right, but within that, I got placed in, and she and her husband were both from Eastern Europe, like Slovenia or some sort of area right outside of there, and they were both architects. Her husband still continued education, did what he needed to do to become licensed in Florida, designed the Hard Rock Hotel down there in Florida, right out of well, in Orlando, because there's a different one now in Fort Lauderdale. But
Yeah, I've been to that one.
and I have too. Good place to gamble as well. So bring your wallet. But she decided to go into teaching, and when she did, she kind of instilled a really neat spark that grew into something more about me wanting to become an architect. Her husband had actually came in probably about two different times and had brought into the class several plans and just drawing sheets from the construction documents from the Hard Rock. And so that was really, really neat to see that. And as a result, I started relating a lot more about mathematics at whatever version that is at sixth grade um, to architecture in the built world, and kind of that transition within there, I think, probably also instilled more of an interest in math for me. It's funny because I use it a ton, but I don't in the way that people think I do now. But to see that kind of transition really helped me grow and then finish studies throughout grade school and,
Wow.
or, K through 12, whatever kind of thing.
Hey, can I
Yeah,
want to ask you
please.
something
Oh,
because you just
please.
have started, part of my goal here in this Bridging Generations is to talk about mentors that people have that either help them along the way or kind of anti-mentors, I guess you say, people for had hardship. And so far you told me about two mentors, and I don't know how many anti-mentor math teachers you had before you met them.
We
But
won't go into those.
we won't go into them, except it's very interesting that it makes a difference. And that's what I wanted to talk, just sort of point out, that mentors really make a huge difference to people. And I'm kind of pretty much a retired therapist now, but I did it for 45 years. And there's this term that therapists use. It's called cathexis, which I think is borrowed from electrical engineering, but it means the connection that you make with another person, just put how the energy of that relationship. And it sounds like what you're saying now. Well, she took an interest in me, this teacher, and somehow it triggered some things. I learned I was not a remedial math student at all. I was really good. So the cathexis makes a difference.
It does, but also finding something that you're passionate about, being able to link to that, and
Yes.
making sure that you maintain interest,
Yeah.
and whatever it is going to ultimately. I think that's probably the one thing that makes everybody successful, either in school or their job, is
The cathexis
yeah,
to the
you will, but you have this relationship to this thing, and
yeah.
a enjoyment that you get
Yeah.
out of it, right? So yeah, absolutely.
That is really cool.
Hmm.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it just like you all of a sudden just spelled this out.
There's a lot, right, in the history of Jesse, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, so moved several times throughout childhood, and eventually through Earl, I had been introduced to this idea that, well, I don't necessarily need to go to a university to become an architect. Um,
Mm.
that's a really good technical idea. It's not a really good practical one.
Mm-hmm.
And so to start off, what I did was just go to a trade school and learn how to draft. Um, Once I got involved with that, I began to realize that I needed to take that extra step and
Mm-hmm.
stop those studies, move forward into um, going to university and actually studying architecture. So I was at Asheville Buncombe Technical Community College. So
It's
beautiful
world
area.
famous. World
Yeah,
famous.
yeah, and then moved to UNC Charlotte, and
When did
from
you move between after your sophomore
let's
year?
see. So I graduated high school in 2004, and I spent 2 years at AB Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Within there, I did 1 year of just general studies, trying to get ready to move over, so that I wasn't overwhelmed with that versus core
Mm-hmm.
coursework that I wanted to do. So I want to say late 2026, or I'm sorry, late 2006 should have been when I started at UNC Charlotte.
Oh, so coming on 20 years here.
Hmm.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, so maybe there's a class reunion I'm missing the mailer for.
Where'd he go?
Yeah,
Colorado. Well,
that's we keep in touch with the people we want to. So,
absolutely.
uh, but I began again more general studies whenever I was at UNCC architecture school. A lot of people think they want to be there, and a lot of people apply. And so as a result, a lot of times you have to be persistent. So for anybody who might be listening, it took me 3 times before I was accepted into architecture school. And
Wow.
I think they were done interviewing me and tired of me showing up every year saying I want to be an architect and go through this. So they decided to give me a shot. But as a
Well,
result, I was able to go through it.
well, I've always admired persistence in people. It's just something that it's not everything. I mean, but if they really want something, persistence is how you demonstrate it.
It is, but I think they were onto something there, and maybe there was a bit of communication that was lost, and that they were really interested in people with a lot of creativity. And it's not to say that
Mm.
I didn't have that, but coming from trade school, I had a lot of technical skill. Right,
Mm-hmm.
they still wanted a lot of that, but in your application process, you're doing a lot of creative writing, which in technical school I'm not.
Oh, well,
Um,
that is interesting.
you're doing a lot of freehand
Huh.
drawing. In technical
Wow.
school, I wasn't.
Huh.
And so understanding what they needed, and then also trying to make sure that I was taking more art classes, focusing on form and function of just random objects or things, and trying to create and learn what that is, and learn more about how to put something from my mind into, doing something. It helped quite a bit. And I think it Ultimately, maybe it was really a combination of both me obtaining some of the skills that I needed to, but also, coming in and just again being very persistent about please let
Yeah.
me into your school
Yeah.
so I can
Well,
do something.
one other thing that admissions committees think about is what's the overall makeup of the students for that year? And I don't know how many people go to art or in architecture school, but it isn't that many at a time, is it?
It's not. My class had originally started out, I believe, at 74 students, which was extremely large.
Mm,
For that one, typically you're around the 50s.
mm.
And I competed for my position with, I think they told me roughly about 7,500 applicants.
Man,
Yeah. So if you can imagine doing that over and over and over again,
did you
hopefully.
know that when you were applying?
I knew that it was hard because, being a decent student, but that not translating into then being accepted into this thing was, again, interesting, right? And it's something that you have to overcome. Something you're looking at introspectively about, what is it that I need to become in order to do this thing,
Mhm.
and is it for me? And but yeah, it's I knew that it was hard. I didn't know that it was to that degree. I really didn't understand, but a lot of people, all the way from, they get exposed to architects in general by way of maybe the Brady Bunch, for instance. The
Oh,
dad was
yeah.
an architect, right? How I Met Your Mother. Forgive me for anybody listening who is going to hate me for never having seen the show, but apparently a guy there is an
Architect.
architect on it, and so you get exposed to different facets of this or some sort of idea, and I think a lot of people take that maybe from culture and a lot of what we call starchitects in the profession.
Architects, yeah.
Your Frank Gehry's, your Caesar Pelle's, a lot of these people, Rem Koolhaas, um, they're pop culture icons that make people want to become some version of them, right? And as a
Right.
result, I'm not saying that that's the only thing or that I had some honest beginning of becoming an architect. I too met someone who was kind of a hero to me whenever I was in 6th grade
Uh-huh.
and did the same thing and had that idea in my head that I wanted to do it. But I think as a result, it drums up a lot of interest in wanting to do it, along with a lot of misconceptions about who we are, what we do, and what we make.
Well,
So
before we're done, I'm going to pick your brains about what exactly is it architects want to do?
sure.
Build, and I think it's a multi-layered thing. This is what I learned. I've interviewed a couple of other architects, and they have said along those lines, like, well, there's lots of reasons, and I just think the reasons are pretty interesting.
They are, but also just the job description in general, just to say, "Hi, I'm an architect," it doesn't encapsulate literally any description of even if I were to introduce myself to another architect, we you don't know enough about each other yet to understand specifically what
Uh-huh.
we're doing day to day and
Right.
what that is. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, so what do you do every day?
Well, there's so again, I work on airports. As a result,
Yeah,
I've
we ought to underscore that he designs airports, which I think is one of those interesting things. When I heard that, I thought, man, that's really interesting.
it's a dream job for me, and I'm sure I don't know if my wife mentioned to you, but I'm a nerd for aviation in general.
She did.
I love going to airports. I think that they make some of the most fascinating pieces of architecture in general.
Mhm.
Um, for a lot of people, it's your first handshake or hello from the city.
That's
Sometimes
true.
it's your last one as well as your
Sure.
goodbye.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a really good way to set a first impression, and a lot of cities do it really, really well. I think like Zurich, for instance, in Switzerland is well, if my wife's ever back on, you can ask her about how I geeked out at that or, airports in Ireland and, other stuff in Europe for that. But I'd say that to say that what that means is, for the most part, these are very, very, very large buildings. And so a lot of people, if you're an architect and you're working on smaller projects, you can have your hand or control over a very large or substantial portion of the project. It's not to say that I don't, but the difference is you could potentially have a much smaller team doing that, or it could just be an individual working. It
Hmm.
will never be an individual from my side doing that stuff. So I have a huge team that works on this, with me. And effectively, I really like to do what we call cradle to grave stuff. So I like to oversee the design process and early conceptual phases of a project. And then I like to take that all the way through the technical development of getting into what our client needs, what we call programming a building. So
Hmm.
you need X amount of offices and you need so many gates for your airport and what have you, whatever the scope of the project is.
The transfer, how you get people from one spot to the other.
Not to mention all the nightmare of security, right?
Oh, the nightmare of security.
Right, and there's this whole other layer of that too, and us trying to facilitate layers of security within the airport. But we go through all that. We develop construction documents, and then we start working with a contractor very early on to start working through construction. A large portion of my career has been focused on the technical aspect of it. So taking a project near its completion within the construction document phase, and then also leading that project then all the way through construction.
Hmm.
So although I like to start on earlier process stuff, my expertise really lay in a lot of the later finality of the project and really trying to take whatever a lot of our superstars that really focus on the design, the space, and everything, and then trying to figure out how to mold that into a realistic, buildable kind of solution that still
Hmm.
emulates everything and all the successes of what they did
Well,
back early on.
now I may be wrong, but I was just picturing that every once in a while you'll find some design flaw that no one anticipated when they're initially designing it. You can't really. Does that ever happen?
Quite a bit, and
Tell us a story
unfortunately,
about it, will you?
I
Which
we
you can't,
it's
if you can.
well, the problem is there's so many that happened that one even just yesterday is so fresh that
Oh.
that I found. But I think the biggest things lie within coordination. So it's not just an architectural team. On top of that, we have structural engineers, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, civil engineers. Sometimes we'll be working with concessions designers, so people
Mm.
outside of our purview who do all your Ruby Tuesdays inside of the
Mhm.
airports or your beer gardens and
Mhm.
stuff. And then we have all sorts of specialists around, depending on what the scope of the project is as well. Um, so within that, generally what we find the mistakes to be are within coordination. So it's basically if the structural engineer puts a column somewhere, a lot of times, especially if I'm a nervous newbie, I might accidentally just go on ahead and hide that because that really messes up what I'm trying to do with all of my stuff. You come back and you look at the drawings later and you found out, hey, someone hit a pretty important structural element. We need to do something about that,
I
right?
like that
And
story because it just captures some of the problems. That's great.
but it's interesting. It's great to work through it. And I think that, especially from my purview, I try to. I'm an architect, and that's what I'm licensed to do. But I always joke around with the other professions that I work with. So
Mhm.
I'll typically be leading a team, but then at the same time, uh, the other teams all have licensed professionals, and I like to joke that I have my honorary whatever that license is, whether it be my professional engineering or my civil engineering, licensure or
Right,
something like that too to
right,
poke at them.
right. And you need a social work degree too to sort of get the whole group to work together, right?
That's a different experiment in its entirety than I'm still learning
Well,
how to manage that.
well, when you said that though, that you think of a team approach, but you're committed to a team approach, and so that does take a certain kind of je ne sais quoi to deal with other people. It takes a skill to do that.
It does.
And it sure makes work a lot more fun if you're with people that you enjoy. And it works, things work better, it just
Hmm.
things work together better. So I think that's cool that you're committed to that, uh, community, the team-based approach here.
Oh, well, you have to be if you're gonna do aviation,
Is
or
that
if you're
right?
gonna do even healthcare or other things, other facets of architecture, because they just involve too many things that although I'd like to think both as a man and also as an architect that I know everything, the reality is that we have specialists who are
Mhm.
they're so smart, they're such intelligent people at what they do.
Mhm.
And on top of that, even outside of my team, I'm still working directly with a contractor and also with an owner. With different priorities and different expertise within
Mm.
that too. And so
Right.
it's interesting to try and both appreciate those things while also trying to have your vision come across. So there's a lot of, but that whole entire struggle amidst everybody is kind of what ends up creating the buildings that you see.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I still think of DIA as kind of a new airport, and it's
Hmm.
got to be at least, what, 20 years old or 20, I don't.
It's definitely
It
established.
is definitely,
Hmm.
but I remember they had this state-of-the-art baggage distribution system, and it was underground, and it ended up never working. And
Hmm.
like baggage was being thrown this way and that, and it never got where it was just this total nightmare. And I thought, oh, what a blunder that is, and just how embarrassing that must be, because everybody's so proud of it. Like this is state of the art. But overall, I don't know what your opinion is of DIA, but I like that airport. And I think it's really gotten cool. I mean, they've been working on it here for a long time, but I get a kick out of that airport.
Well, all the little colloquial legends that come across about Blucifer,
Oh, I
which
know.
or about the
The lizard
Illuminati,
people. Yeah.
And the lizard people, and then they lean into that. So all their advertisements, they could have a temporary partition set up to block your view from the construction, but it's got a poster of a lizard grabbing a tool. Like, hey, we're
Right.
sorry, but something keeps grabbing
Right. I know.
our stuff. I love that they lean into
I
that.
do too.
And it's I'm really hopeful that I get to actually do some work soon for Denver International. That's a huge kind of client that we're
Mhm.
presently chasing, and
Mhm.
we have some leads on being able to do some things. But I
Good.
don't. Did you hear those tunnels you were talking about that they're finding a new life now? Did you hear that they're
Yes, they're gonna. So if the trains don't work, people aren't trapped. And I
eh,
think that's really great.
and the trains are over capacity, and oftentimes we hear that little indication, especially if I'm hopping on off of a flight and trying to get home to see my daughter before her bedtime, and then I get a little nice reminder over the intercom that the trains are down and I have to wait.
Wow. Well, I have dodged that so far. Well, here's this funny thing about me. In my professional practice, I travel quite a bit because I was on national boards and stuff. We go this place. And so I sort of like, a lot of confidence. I do what I was doing. And, things didn't go bad hardly ever. But then COVID hit, and all of a sudden I started, and at my age maybe too, but now it sort of makes me anxious. So I realized that airports it's full of anxious people. There's a
Hmm.
lot of people that are nervous. They've got to make the plane on time. And why are they going where they're going? If somebody's sick, because there's some sort of interaction with some rude person, that is kicking your backs. I mean, they're just all this
Or they're
anxiety.
patting you down, and
Yeah.
they're
Oh, man. And I have a hip replacement, so, you know,
oh, so you're getting the
I
extra special
always get
treatment.
the extra
Yeah,
special. But
you have a private room
I'm
at
just used to
Denver.
that at this point. May I have permission, sir?
We're gonna use the back of our hands. Yeah,
Right.
that's it's it's interesting. I think, and what I'll say is that although a lot of us who fly so frequently, um, I want to say I was just on a run where it's been 12 weeks in a row that I've been in a plane every week
Wow.
going somewhere,
Wow.
and so yeah, we start to get numb to a couple of the things, or we go through our routine. So I know exactly what I'm doing whenever I walk into Denver and
Mhm.
doing that. But and then in general with airports, they're kind of laid out in very particular ways
Mhm.
that even if you're in a new spot, you can sort of figure things out. But that's what's interesting about um, my job is trying to take a step back every single time that I go somewhere, especially if I experience a new airport. I'm always interested in what the architects were struggling with, what they did, because we're not the only company who's designing airports.
Right.
There's a few, and they're
Mm.
all really talented, but they have different processes that lead to
Mhm.
I'm not going to say equally as good results because I love what we do,
Yeah.
but they make really fascinating things, right? And so then you start to look and you think, okay, well, um, is the architecture kind of hopefully it's calming me down. Hopefully it's creating grand spaces that don't feel overcrowded. It does, is it telling me where to go? Is it the other thing really stressful if you don't know where you are, you're getting off a plane in a new place and you have to use a bathroom? Trying to find the bathroom is a really important thing for a
It
lot of
is.
people.
No, it really is. You're
Yeah.
definitely right.
And so trying to go through that and really taking the time, and I will, as my wife and I are traveling here in a little bit, uh, to look around and kind of assess and see, well, how did other people resolve this, or did they?
Mhm.
And if they didn't,
Yeah.
then I might approach the airport director and offer my services. But if they did, I might take a page out of their book if they did it successfully.
Oh, and you can deduct the whole trip on your income
Oh,
tax
oh,
because you're doing
uh,
some work research.
I don't own my
Oh,
firm, so as a result, maybe we'll figure out a more dental approach towards my wife claiming that.
no, though. What? There's a name for those sorts of things. What is it? Oh, I'm spacing out. I'm getting too old. I remember, but just like those things that are so automatic that you don't know that you need them until you don't have them. Something
Yeah,
like how to go towards the restroom. You don't think about, man, I need to know where the restroom is. But then you have to go and then you have to find it. So that's just an example.
absolutely.
Huh. So, well, tell us about where you're working right now.
So I have a few different projects. I've just recently came off Asheville, North Carolina, project there. So the Asheville Regional Airport is constructing something pretty magnificent. So
Are
their
they do?
existing facility had roughly about 6 gates. We are expanding them to 12, and they just recently got done with. So basically, they demolished a certain section of the existing airport and then rebuilt an all new facility.
Mm.
And then they demolished and they're rebuilding all new. So by the time we get done, it'll all be brand new. Pretty exciting considering that, again, going to the back of that, as soon as we moved from Orlando, we were in the Asheville area. And so this is my family and my friends' home airport. And
Oh,
I
that's great.
had a pretty significant role in doing some things with that. So it's really exciting to have that. Of course,
Yeah.
during the intermediary while people were flying, I remember one thing where my my niece, so my brother's daughter, and him and his wife all came back in one late night, and I was on the job site, so I went out there and I met them, and they have really nice brewery, Sierra Nevada, right outside of the airport. That it used to be our job site bar as well, probably still is for them.
Yeah.
Really good food, whatever. So we
Yeah.
all went out there, but as I was picking them up, uh, they just woo, nice airport, but it was because they had to go through trailers and whatever else
Oh,
because everything else is being constructed. But now, a lot of my family is reporting back to me, telling me it was just it's humbling and it's awesome that Jesse, we're really proud of you. Like this is really beautiful, and so that's cool. So that's one. The I'm doing a little bit of Fort Lauderdale International,
I
which has
like
been
that
interesting.
airport. I have flown into that airport. The outdoor space, you don't expect that there's going to be outdoor space.
There's they're modifying some of that stuff within there too, but it's a nice airport. I
It is.
I like it. It's very
It's kind
convenient.
of
It's got a nice
inexpensive
little
to
loop.
fly into,
It's
too.
it's not bad unless it's the World Cup,
Well,
and
yes. Yes.
then it's a little expensive.
Yeah.
But completely different thing on there, representing the owner and trying to manage cost escalation on a particular project there.
Uh-huh.
And then finally, my biggest effort presently is the start of a concourse expansion at Knoxville Airport in Knoxville, Tennessee. Um, also hits close to home because my grandparents and a large portion of their family are from the Knoxville area. And
Oh.
so it's been really great to again go back to some of my roots, some of my history with my family.
Your ancestry goes back a ways there, doesn't it?
It does. It goes all throughout Appalachia, but
Does it?
yeah.
Scots Irish? Are you Scots Irish?
So portion of my family is also German as well.
Mhm.
But yeah. So it's that one's really exciting. That's very much in its infancy right now. So if you interview me in roughly about 3 years, we should start to see that break ground and do something,
Wow.
which would be nice.
Is Knoxville the capital of Tennessee?
It is not. I believe it's Nashville, maybe,
Is it?
or
For some reason, this is what I had this cathexis to my history teacher in fourth grade.
Mhm.
Somehow she popped up and then she said Knoxville, but it could be.
Maybe I don't think it would be
Uh,
Knoxville, but then again, Goodness, I feel so embarrassed because we had to know, whenever we were a kid, we had to recite all the capitals of
Exactly.
each state,
Exactly.
and now I just turned 40, so I don't remember any of them anymore.
Well, it doesn't get any better.
No,
I'll
fair.
just say. That's the other thing. I do like to interview people that are a different generation than I, and I realize at 76 there are really 2 generations behind me that I can interview. That was sort of a shock. But I don't have grandchildren, but if I had grandchildren, they could already be 20, 22 years old.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. So, okay. So back to you're back in your roots, which I think is interesting, even though you've moved to Colorado. And, and your wife said that you really both went, oh, Boulder's where we want to live when you sort of got here. So I thought that was interesting. And maybe that's worth bringing up here a little bit. So,
It was a great experience. So if she spoke about it, we were coming up, and I had never been to Colorado. She had been a couple times on a few trips with large teen groups to do some 14ers. I'd never been on the top of a single 14er, and so we were living in San Antonio at the time in Texas. So maybe
beautiful city.
It's great, military city too. Amazing people, even more amazing food, which is why I still have a little bit of this left over from that. Colorado's helping me work it off, but not quick enough. But we came up, we flew in, we rented a car, we went straight up to the top of Pikes Peak. So we went from damn near sea level all the way up to,
did you drive or
14,
did you take that tramway thing?
We drove. I think that during that time, I want to say, because it was during COVID, let me see, September, like Labor Day weekend of 2020. So I believe that the train was actually shut down during that time. We've been up there several other times, and we still haven't taken the train. We just drive up every time. But
I was just asking because I have a friend coming in to visit, and I want to go to Pikes Peak. And so I was thinking, well, I've never taken that tramway. So I was just checking to see if it's
haven't done it, but it looks neat.
Yeah.
So we did that. We came back down and we visited some of her friends in Fort Collins. So we drove all the way up there. During that time, the Cameron Peak fires were happening. So
wow.
This was a really interesting thing. And I'll divert briefly to say that what my wife and I try to do whenever we visit somewhere new or new to one of us, we will eat and drink our way through the city as a means of exploration, right? So in that instance,
just lurching through and.
Yeah, but well, for me especially, give me a local beer. I want to try it, especially if I've had it somewhere else, like Odell, for instance.
Sure.
I now want to try it at the brewery. Is it different?
Oh, interesting.
Is it like Guinness, where it doesn't taste like Guinness unless it's, in Ireland or Liverpool or something close?
So you have standards here.
Well, Colorado's ruined me for any poor beer towns because we have amazing stuff with that. But that's actually, so if she hasn't told you, we'll come back to beer in a moment because that's naturally what.
I think she decided to save that for you to talk about.
Probably. It's probably better that the architect talk about how much of a, alcoholic he is than your doctor, but so we were up there, and I remember it was the most just ethereal experience in that the peak fires were happening. So we're kind of looking over the horizon. There's smoke like capped. So what we call a ceiling in aviation this way. So just really dark. It was 2 p.m., something like that whenever we were doing it. We were on vacation. Don't judge us. And so we're there, we're drinking, but I'm looking and there's ash falling from the sky. It's red on the horizon.
Oh, man.
It was very ominous.
Wow.
But I'm like, well, it was different. The beer was still cold and delicious, so that was fine. But while that was going on, so it had kind of shut down some activities that we were hoping to do going up into the mountains that day, right? I believe that there was a little bit of threat about that moving a little bit further south into Estes Park at the time. And then something else happened. It started snowing on Labor Day, which was
I remember
really
one
unique.
other time that did that. I was visiting in Denver, and we had to drive home in a snowstorm to Durango on Labor Day. I remember when I was a little kid.
It was wild.
I know.
And so we did some funny videos with that and everything. But as a result, originally we had a 4-wheel drive vehicle. By the time we came down Pikes Peak, the 4Runner that we had ran a flat. Turns out it had a nail in it, something. We had to
Oh.
take it all the way back.
Oh,
The only other
no.
one that they had was a Jeep Grand Cherokee that was not a 4-wheel drive.
I didn't even know they made things.
I didn't either until I rented one.
Huh.
And so we, having not drove up here, and because I'm from Appalachia and everybody out here reminds you that in Appalachia, those aren't real mountains, those are hills, and these are the real mountains, right? But given all that, we were like, well, maybe it's not such a good idea that we drive up. And we were talking and we said, okay, well, let's cancel what we have up in Estes Park and let's look for, a fancy little place over here. And we found the Boulderado.
Oh.
We went there. It just started dumping snow. That night around the corner, they have a sushi place.
All right.
It was fairly, like just not crowded because it's snowing everywhere. The sushi guys, they were just making us all sorts of stuff. And then Kung Pai, they just all started drinking with us doing it. It was awesome. It was a great magical thing. We held hands, walked back there.
This story.
Everything, in the snow, especially on Pearl Street, everything was calm. It's quiet. You know how snow just makes everything really silent to some degree. So it was just a beautiful thing where you can still see the Flatirons off in the distance, and it's just really quiet and it's pretty. The next day, we're like, well, we don't know if we should go up to Rocky Mountain National Park or not because of the snow and everything. And but let's go find a brewery, right? And probably again on vacation, don't judge us. Probably around noontime or something. And but we go, and I think they're shut down now, unfortunately. But it was Sanita's Brewing, and they had an owl as their mascot. We were drinking, and we're I don't know, probably about 3 beers deep at this point, and we look at each other and we're like, "This is amazing. This is great beer. We love it here. This spot's really unique." And we passed probably about 6 other spots on the way that were exactly like this neighborhoody, really collective thing. We had met so many amazing people, and we're just, well, this is probably it. I think we really need to look at Colorado whenever it comes time for us to find a forever place. So after we got through all the residency things that we did, it became really easy to just say this is the spot that we want to move our family. So
you're 2 years into it, and you have a job that takes you to lots of different cities. So there's always going to be a comparison in your mind, I suppose, in some way. But home is home. Like you live in Superior, I think, don't you? Or Erie?
In Broomfield.
Broomfield.
Yeah, but just like if you were to cross baseline, that would be Erie, right? Yeah. So we're just at that tippy top of Broomfield.
Do you know how Broomfield got its name?
I have no idea.
Well, they used to grow broom. I mean, it was a Scotch broom, it was called, which is a kind of plant that they would make brooms out of. And that's why it was called Broomfield.
I had no idea. That's awesome.
So I know these little esoteric facts about Boulder.
I need to know that because my family has handed down, again, all of these facts from Appalachia, but we've met so many people who actually know a lot of the local history. It's really fascinating to go through that, like Lafayette and hearing some of that as well.
Yeah, that is. Well, my great-great-great-grandparents came to Boulder in 1859, so they were like original settlers. Well, he came with his gold mining company, and then he went back to get his wife and his daughter in 1861. But they didn't stay. They actually ended up north of Erie, right off of Boulder Creek in the ranch. And then their daughter married this Danish immigrant, and they headed southwest down to Durango. So that's where my family, but it was, ancient old pioneer ranching families is what they were. And some were Scotch-Irish. I have some Scotch-Irish ancestors.
Nice.
Okay. Oh, now I forgot where were you? What were we talking about?
I don't have the slightest idea.
Well, you're drinking, it's because you were drinking beer, and then we just,
well, that's,
it's like,
everything comes more natural, and it's really easy for you to get really excited about things whenever you're drinking beer. So that's
well, do you have a favorite Colorado beer then now?
I have a few, but the one place that I've really enjoyed, Liquid Mechanics out in in Lafayette.
Yes, I've seen
So
that.
right off of baseline, whenever we first moved here, we lived in Lafayette, and we only lived about maybe 2 blocks away from there, which
Oh.
is eerily dangerous.
Mhm,
So,
mhm,
especially for someone who likes beer as much as
mhm,
I do, uh, that's been really good. But I have to say, traveling around, even going to Golden, new terrain is amazing there.
mhm.
Um, Going to Denver to Cerebral Brewing or Four Noses in Westminster, I believe it is.
Well, you're introducing me to some new names, so thank you.
Oh, they're fantastic,
Huh.
right? And so it's and they'll all have the typical things that everybody likes, whether it's hazies or some German style things and
Mhm.
everything, and then but each one does some pretty spectacular stuff. So,
Well, great,
and there's some I haven't been to that I've just
great,
picked up off the shelf, like
great.
New Mexico, La Cumbre.
Oh, no, I have had the Cumbre.
They make some fast and fantastic stuff, and
Have you
so
been down to New Mexico, by
uh,
the way, since?
I've never been down from Colorado while we were living in Texas. Um, Interesting story. My wife and I, during one of our anniversaries, we went up to Seattle, and I got to hike up Mount Rainier up
Oh.
to it's called Paradise Point, I think, and
Mhm.
so we're doing that, and came back down. We did a couple other things, and we flew back home. And when I landed back home, I get back off the plane in San Antonio, and I immediately just get upset. There's no mountains here, right? And I'm just mountain fever caught me, and so that next weekend, my wife had a conference to go to for something. I ended up driving all the way out to what's the mountains up in Texas. Goodness, not the Chisos Mountains in Big Bend, but the other ones on the border between Guadalupe
Oh, the
Mountains.
Guadalupe, yeah.
And so I drove all the way out there, summited Guadalupe Peak that day, came back down, um, pitch black, and then hopped back in my car. And my brother-in-law, so her brother, at the time lived in New Mexico, so I crossed the border and went up there, and then I left the next day. So
I
that's the
just
only thing I
yeah.
have from New Mexico.
I just mentioned it because to me, it's like New Mexico, our sister state.
Hmm.
It's desert more, but it's very deserty. The atmosphere totally changes. Once you cross the state line, it's a totally different atmosphere. But to me, it's just like, I just feel it's my second home. New Mexico is my second home. So that's the only reason I brought that up.
Nice,
Yeah.
yeah. Being in Durango, I would have thought it would have been Utah for
Not,
as close as.
well, actually, New Mexico was 20 miles away.
Oh, that makes sense
So,
because it's
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
I got it mixed up
yeah,
with Grand Junction. I
yeah.
guess I'm still
Yeah.
learning.
Oh, yeah. It's Grand Junction. It
I'm
would be
still
Utah.
learning about
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
stuff there. So
But Utah's not that far away. The all the national parks, all the
just went there last year
yeah.
to Moab for a little bit. It was
Did you?
magical. Yeah, Maddie loved it too. So yeah,
Maddie. So Maddie, is she a native of Colorado then, or was she born there?
she is not. She would be a Georgia peach if you consider where she was born from. She was born in Augusta, Georgia, in October of 2022.
Augusta, Georgia.
That's right. She doesn't carry the accent, but you know, that's fine. Both my family being from the South and also naturally Liz's as well. I guess they like that because then she can claim Southern by birth, right?
Got you.
So
Now, I don't pick up an accent that you have. Do you
it's
think? Would you
it,
say you have one?
it's a different one. The major way to tell it's very hyper regional to Orlando itself, but it's the way that I say O's.
O's?
Uh-huh. So, it's if I say Orlando, it sounds like I'm ending with a W at the end,
Oh,
and that's a lot of people have told me that's how they pick up that
oh,
that's where it is.
God.
I might be able to talk like this a little bit and do some stuff, and so I can go there. Or I've lived up in the Great Lakes, and they have something
They
different too.
definitely do. Yeah.
But it's my family, a lot of them have very strong Southern draws. I made a point early on in life, which I'm kind of upset about because I really could have used a Southern draw to my advantage in so many ways. But in an attempt to remove that, I guess to be taken more seriously. So I kind of lost a little bit of that. You might catch it whenever I go back around my family and then, come back into town. I might do it. But
Well, if you get around your family and they draw, then I'll bet that you draw some more too.
It
It just happens, that sort of thing.
takes a little bit, or
Yeah,
you get around anybody who does it. And again, beer is a really good catalyst towards
yeah,
changing your
yeah,
accent as
yeah.
well. So,
So I have one more thing I want to cover for sure here, and that is now that you're 40, you've had your mentors and you'll continue to have mentors, but you're now can be the mentor yourself.
mhm.
And how's that going to go? What do you think is going to happen or what has happened there?
I've made a point of trying to do that career wise, and that's been the case for a while. I noticed that a lot of people don't have the experience or the expertise that I have in regards to just seeing buildings built. I
Yeah.
was really lucky and fortunate that I would say roughly 98% of what I was designing got built, which is very different to what you see from most firms. A lot of projects will go on hold, things will happen, um, so I noticed that, and I noticed that I had a unique skill set of being able to see a lot of things through construction that
Yeah.
I could then mentor to other people, regardless of my age or theirs. And
Mhm.
the other thing is that I haven't just done aviation. Aviation, specific and only aviation has only been the case for the last 5 years for
Oh,
me. But well before then, I was doing anywhere from healthcare to I did a police station. I've done
oh yeah.
libraries.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff.
Huh.
Higher education stuff, dental offices. So within that, airports take so long to get built, and if you're on a particular project for this long, what an architect in our field may get, so what a younger staff person with me would end up doing is seeing maybe one building built during that time,
Mhm.
right? Well, over 5 years, I'd probably seen over 100 buildings built by that
Mhm.
point. Um, so I've been really interested in how I can translate that uh, to go. So career wise, um, there's been a lot of that, and also how I obtain my licensure is a little bit more unique than the standard
Yeah,
path.
that's true.
Um,
Uh-huh.
I didn't go to a master's program. I don't have a professional degree. I have a 4-year bachelor's degree. And as a result, I had to go through a little bit more, gain more experience and find a state who would be allowing me to do that. There's a lot of other people who um, start off within the profession the same way, thinking that they have to go to school and either, they can't stop and then take on that burden of debt. Again, that's very difficult to do. Or maybe they just don't want to, or they started a family and they don't want to go back to school. So it's been really
Oh,
fun mentoring them about here's your alternate path to licensure. And I've done that.
I'm so glad you said that because, when I was growing up, well, I have my PhD, you're supposed to kind of go as far as you can.
Hmm.
And I had that idea with my kids too. Well, of course you're going to go to grad school. Well, they both got bachelor's degrees and they both have fine jobs, as it worked out fine. But
Hmm.
no, they weren't interested in graduate degrees. And I, and there's sort of like a change in the atmosphere about colleges and universities, partly because it's become so darned expensive. And why burden people with this incredible debt, which to me seems like it's a big part. But also a part of it is, what are they teaching kids in these woke school? Which kind of
I heard that a
that
lot
makes me
after.
crazy. But
Yeah. But every summer, that was
yeah,
my lecture
yeah,
being received from
yeah.
that. Yeah.
But anyway, the whole zeitgeist about it, professional university education is changing. And so
Hmm.
you're a great example for that as a person who struck out, on your own about that and were successful. So I think that's really a useful way. I mean, we're kind of getting to the end of our session here, and I think that's really a useful sort of thing as you mentor future architects here.
That's it's really important to me because I think overall what we're noticing is, especially with the incorporation of artificial intelligence and other things, that can potentially reduce architectural workforce.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, right.
we're seeing, a lot of people. A lot of people can't really justify taking on the amount of debt that they need to go to
Right.
graduate school
Right.
and do that. And that was really the case for me as well. It took me so long to get into architecture school that I had to take on a certain amount of debt
Yeah.
before even graduating that, which is why I picked up other degrees along the way and did stuff. But um, Yeah, it's really special to me to say, okay, we know as a profession we likely need to create a path to licensure, a more thorough one and a more universal one for people like me who have bachelor's degrees. Because the fact of the matter is, you don't actually need it. You can learn so much more doing this. And maybe within academia, that might make sense, especially for research
Sure.
institutions. But for practical things, we need that. So right now, I'm sort of gaming the system with people and helping them with that. But an overarching goal would be to start to show that um, you can be an architect, you can be a successful one, a very knowledgeable one as well, and practice. And as a result, we can point to several people who've done that and show the system that we should be able to evoke some sort of change to make sure when people get out, um, they're financially stable and they haven't taken on as much as
Mhm.
I guess is expected today.
Yeah. Huh. Well, Jesse, thank you so much for coming in. I thought this was really good.
Absolutely.
And aren't you right? 45 minutes goes pretty fast.
It flies, doesn't it? That's wild. Wild.
But so I'm glad. And I loved having your position, like you really are clear in how you talk about things. And I really enjoyed that. That was really clarifying for people that might have questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So thank you.
It was a pleasure. It was nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.